It was supposed to be a quiet day. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the neat rows of houses in the quiet suburban neighborhood. Alex had no particular destination, just a simple walk to clear his mind. The faint smell of freshly cut grass, mixed with the scent of blooming flowers, creating the perfect picture of serenity. But that perfect peace was shattered the moment he rounded the corner. A group of men in crisp, dark uniforms stood at the entrance of the street, blocking his path. Their posture was rigid, eyes scanning the surroundings like predators. The kind of men you might expect to see on a movie set, yet these men weren't actors. The dark blue badges on their chests gleamed with an unsettling shine, catching the sunlight in a way that made them look almost too polished. They didn't belong here. Not in this neighborhood. Alex's heart skipped a beat, a chill creeping up his spine. One of the men, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped forward. His face was hard, the kind of face that looked like it had seen more than its fair share of confrontation. "Excuse me, sir," the man said, his voice low, laced with authority. "We need to speak with you about a violation." Alex froze. A violation. His first thought was that maybe they were referring to some petty neighborhood rule, perhaps a misplaced garbage can or an untrimmed hedge. The neighborhood HOA had always been picky about those things, but something in the way the man spoke made Alex's gut twist with suspicion. "I'm sorry, what violation?" Alex asked, his voice steady but cautious. His eyes flicked briefly to the other men standing behind the leader, their eyes locked on him like hawks watching their prey. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he just gestured with a slow, deliberate motion to the others, as if ensuring no one else would interfere. Then, without breaking eye contact, he reached for a tablet clipped to his belt. The screen lit up with a flash, and Alex could see a photo of his house, an image that made his blood run cold. The photo wasn't recent, but that wasn't what unnerved him. The image was marked with a bold red stamp that read "Violation. Unauthorized vehicle in driveway." The date stamped across the top was 2 weeks ago. Alex's breath caught in his throat. There was no vehicle in his driveway 2 weeks ago. In fact, there had never been an unauthorized vehicle parked there, not once. This was wrong. Something didn't add up. The man noticed Alex's pause and smiled, but it wasn't the friendly smile of someone doing their job. It was cold, calculated, as if he was expecting resistance. "We've had reports, Mr. Harris. You've violated the HOA's rules, and we need to take care of this matter immediately." His words were clipped, final, leaving no room for negotiation. The word "reports" echoed in Alex's mind. Reports? From whom? And why hadn't he received any prior warnings? He had been living in this neighborhood for years, paying dues, attending meetings, and following the rules to the letter. The HOA had no business treating him like a criminal. "Excuse me, but I don't believe we've met," Alex said, his tone sharper now. "Who exactly are you people? And where's your identification?" The leader's eyes narrowed, and Alex felt the air between them shift. The two men behind him took a step closer, their eyes now locked on Alex with an intensity that felt almost predatory. He could feel the weight of their gaze like a tangible thing, and a subtle heat began to build in his chest. Something about the situation was off. His hand instinctively brushed against his jacket, where his sheriff's badge rested, unseen but always within reach. But before he could reach for it, the leader spoke again, his voice a little more forceful. "We are the HOA enforcement team," the man said, his smile vanishing entirely. "And we don't take kindly to anyone who ignores the rules." Alex swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. HOA enforcement team. This was getting out of hand. These men didn't look like just a neighborhood security detail. They looked like they were ready for a confrontation, prepared for something far more serious than a simple community violation. Why had they targeted him? And why were they so insistent on escalating the situation? He glanced around, but the street was eerily quiet. No neighbors. No one around to witness what was happening. Just the hum of a distant lawnmower and the soft breeze rustling through the trees. Everything seemed wrong. Alex had always prided himself on his ability to stay calm under pressure, but something about these men made his instincts flare. His heart raced, and a voice inside screamed that he was standing on the edge of something far bigger than a petty rule violation. And that's when it hit him. He wasn't just being confronted by a few overzealous HOA guards. Something more was at play here. Something dangerous. The threat wasn't just about rules, it was about control. And Alex was standing right in the middle of it. Alex stood motionless, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. The leader of the HOA enforcement team, the man with the hard eyes and the cold smile, watched him closely, clearly waiting for a response. The air hung thick with unspoken tension, and the street, usually filled with the sounds of everyday suburban life, had fallen deathly silent. No birds chirped. No neighbors called out to each other. It felt as if the whole world had paused, just to witness this strange, unsettling standoff. Alex's fingers twitched, inching closer to the inside of his jacket where his sheriff's badge waited. But the leader's eyes locked onto his hand, and Alex felt a surge of unease. The men behind him, previously standing casually, shifted into positions that made it clear they weren't here to negotiate. They were here to control. The stocky guard with the stubbled beard took a half-step forward, his hand brushing against something hidden on his belt. Something about the guard's movement made Alex's instincts flare. His pulse quickened, and the faintest tremor of anxiety slid down his spine. The men weren't just acting like authority figures. They were playing a dangerous game. Alex had been in enough high-stakes situations to recognize the signs. This wasn't just a neighborhood dispute. It was something far darker. "Do you understand the severity of this, Mr. Harris?" The leader's voice was cold, cutting through the growing unease. "Ignoring HOA rules isn't a small matter. You've been warned. And now we're here to enforce the consequences." His eyes gleamed with a twisted sense of satisfaction, as though he enjoyed watching Alex squirm. He took a step closer, forcing Alex to look up at him. Alex's mind raced. Consequences. What were they really talking about? This wasn't a simple fine or warning. There was something beneath the surface here, something Alex couldn't quite put his finger on. His instincts told him to be careful, to not give these men an inch. But the pressing weight of the leader's gaze made it hard to think clearly. The guard's hand continued to hover at his belt, and Alex's eyes flicked to it, narrowing in suspicion. The guard with the stubble chuckled darkly, as if sensing Alex's discomfort. "You think you can just walk away from this? No one's above the rules, not even you," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "We'll make sure you pay for your negligence." Alex felt his muscles tighten in response. His grip on the inside of his jacket was growing stronger, but he resisted. If these men were truly just HOA security, they had no power over him. And yet, something about the way they were acting made it clear they didn't think the same. The leader raised his hand, motioning for the guard to step back, but his eyes never left Alex. "You're making a big mistake, Harris," he said, his voice dropping to a low, almost threatening growl. "We're not just some neighborhood watch group. We have the authority to handle situations like this." Alex's brows furrowed. "Authority?" he repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. "Since when do HOA security officers have the authority to?" Before he could finish, the leader cut him off with a sharp motion. "We've been granted special privileges, authority to enforce all HOA regulations, including those with legal consequences. We've been authorized to ensure compliance by any means necessary." The statement hung in the air like a bad omen. Alex's stomach churned. By any means necessary. That was a phrase he knew well from his law enforcement experience, and it was never used lightly. The blood drained from his face as he started to piece together the truth. These men weren't just enforcers of petty neighborhood rules. They were operating outside the bounds of the law. This wasn't about a parking violation. This wasn't even about neighborhood regulations. This was about power, control. They had been granted authority, but something in Alex's gut told him they had taken it too far. And now, they were trying to intimidate him into submission. The stocky guard took a step closer, his breath heavy with unspoken threats. "You don't want to make this harder than it needs to be, Sheriff," he said, his words dripping with venom. "You'd be wise to cooperate before things get messy." The word sheriff hit Alex like a slap in the face. How did this man know? Alex's heart hammered against his chest, his eyes snapping back to the leaders. The recognition in the guard's voice wasn't lost on him. They knew. They knew exactly who he was, and that meant things had just escalated in a way Alex hadn't anticipated. The leader's lips curled into a sinister smile. "Oh, we know exactly who you are, Sheriff, but your badge doesn't intimidate us. Not anymore." He stepped back, his hands raised as if to demonstrate his control over the situation. "You're either going to comply, or we'll be forced to escalate this further. It's your choice, Sheriff, but don't think for a second that you're in charge here." Alex's blood ran cold as he took in the full weight of their words. His grip on his badge tightened, and a slow, creeping rage began to boil inside him. They were pushing him, testing him. They didn't know who they were dealing with. The quiet hum of the wind filled the space between them, but Alex barely heard it. All he could hear was the pounding of his own heartbeat and the quiet fury that began to stir within him. They had made a mistake. They had underestimated him. And they were about to find out just how wrong they were. Alex's heart raced as the leader's words echoed in his ears. "You're either going to comply, or we'll be forced to escalate this further." His instincts screamed that this was no longer about a simple dispute. The more the man spoke, the more Alex could sense the darkness behind their seemingly innocent roles as neighborhood enforcers. There was something cold, something predatory, about the way they were moving, the way they were watching him. His pulse thundered in his ears as the silence stretched, suffocating. The leader took a step back, his eyes narrowing with quiet menace. Behind him, the guards, still unnervingly calm, shifted their weight from one foot to the other, their gazes never leaving Alex. The stocky man with the stubbled beard moved to the side, subtly positioning himself between Alex and the leader, blocking any escape route. A cold chill gripped Alex's spine. He was being cornered. They were waiting for something, and Alex wasn't about to give it to them. Not yet. "I don't know who you think you're dealing with, but you've made a grave mistake," Alex said, his voice calm but low, carrying a weight of authority that had not been there before. His hand rested subtly near the inside of his jacket, near the comforting metal of his sheriff's badge. But there was something far more lethal in the way his fingers curled near the badge, as if preparing for a fight he didn't want. The leader's lips curled into a smile, a tight, unnerving expression that didn't reach his eyes. "We're not the ones making the mistakes, Sheriff," he said with a sneer. "You are. You've been warned. Now you'll face the consequences." A sudden movement from the stocky guard caught Alex's attention. The man's hand was moving lower now, gliding towards his belt in a deliberate motion. Alex's eyes locked onto it, his pulse quickening as he saw the faint glint of something metallic. A taser. "They're not just threatening me," Alex thought. "They're preparing to subdue me." Without thinking, Alex's body reacted faster than his mind. His hand shot out, gripping the leader's arm in a vice-like grip, twisting it so that the man's body was forced to turn, a quick and efficient maneuver. The leader let out a sharp gasp, but Alex didn't stop. He shoved the man hard, sending him crashing into one of the other guards. The man stumbled, but didn't fall. The stocky guard, still holding the taser, lunged forward, the device flashing with a sudden electric crackle. Too slow, Alex thought, his reflexes honed over years of law enforcement experience. In one fluid motion, he sidestepped and grabbed the guard's arm, twisting it sharply so the taser flew out of the man's hand and skittered across the pavement. The guard let out a strangled shout, clutching his wrist as Alex's grip remained firm, unyielding. The other guards froze, their eyes wide with shock, their carefully laid plans crumbling before their eyes. The leader, now recovering from his forced turn, shot Alex a look of pure rage, his voice rising in fury. "You're making a huge mistake, Sheriff." His eyes flickered briefly to the other men, who still hesitated, unsure how to respond to the sudden eruption of violence. Alex's mind was clear, razor-sharp. He could feel the power in the badge at his side, the weight of authority it carried. But he wasn't here to throw it around recklessly. He was here to make them understand. They had no power over him. Not now. Not ever. With a swift push, Alex sent the guard stumbling backward into the grass, the sound of the impact muffled by the earth. The leader's voice trembled with anger, but Alex didn't let him finish. In a flash, he was on him, pushing the man up against a mailbox, his hand pinning the man's chest to the cold metal. The other guard stood frozen, still in disbelief, unsure whether to intervene. "Let me make something clear," Alex said, his voice a low growl, filled with quiet menace. "You have no authority here. And you sure as hell don't get to treat me like a criminal." His eyes glinted with fire, the sheer calm in his demeanor making his words all the more dangerous. The leader gasped for air, the pressure against his chest making him struggle to breathe. "You don't know who you're messing with, Sheriff," he wheezed, his voice no longer holding the same cold confidence as before. But Alex wasn't listening. He wasn't here to negotiate anymore. They had made their move, and now it was time to make them feel the weight of their mistake. He stepped back, releasing the leader, who stumbled away, clutching his chest. "Get out of my way," Alex commanded, his voice firm, devoid of fear. The other guards exchanged nervous glances, clearly unsure whether to escalate things further or retreat. But the leader, eyes burning with hatred, finally held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "You're not getting away with this, Sheriff," he spat, his words trembling with venom. "You'll regret this." Alex's eyes narrowed. "You've made that mistake already," he said coldly. He turned his back on them, his movements calm, but there was no doubt in his step. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As he walked away, he could feel their eyes burning into his back, their collective fury hanging heavy in the air. The quiet of the neighborhood had returned, but it was a different kind of silence now. One that crackled with the electric tension of a confrontation that had only just begun. The tension in the air was palpable, but the moment of relief Alex felt after the retreat of the HOA enforcers was short-lived. He watched them drive off, their vehicles disappearing around the corner, leaving the street eerily silent once more. His hand still gripped the edge of his jacket, his heart thundering in his chest as the adrenaline began to ebb away. He could still feel the weight of their presence, their unspoken threats, hanging over him like a storm cloud. "Alex, you all right?" The neighbor's voice brought him back to the present, grounding him as her concerned gaze locked onto him. "Yeah," Alex replied, shaking his head slightly to clear the fog of uncertainty. "I'm fine, but something's definitely wrong here." His eyes shifted back to the direction the men had gone, his mind racing with questions. Who were they really? Why did they come after him specifically? And why had they been so quick to resort to intimidation? The woman, still standing on her front porch, gave him a small, uncertain smile. "I didn't expect that. I thought they were just regular security officers at first, but there's definitely something off about them. They weren't acting like normal HOA staff." Alex nodded, his thoughts spinning like gears in his head. He couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning. The men's words, the way they had tried to trap him into submission, kept echoing in his mind. "You're either going to comply, or we'll escalate this," the leader had said. It wasn't just about the HOA rules. It was about something far more sinister. "I'm going to get to the bottom of this," Alex muttered, more to himself than to his neighbor. "But I need to be careful. They're not just pushing me around. They've got something planned." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Do you need any help?" I called. "No," Alex interrupted gently, shaking his head. "I appreciate it, but I'll handle it. Just keep an eye out. If they come back, I need you to call me immediately." "Of course," she said, her face turning serious. "And be careful. I don't know who those men were, but they didn't look like anyone I've ever seen around here before." With a final, lingering glance, Alex turned and walked down the street, his mind still reeling. He couldn't help but feel the strange sensation that something larger than just a neighborhood power struggle was at play. Whoever those men were, they weren't working alone. There was a bigger game here, and Alex was standing right in the middle of it. He made his way to his house, his eyes darting around as he processed every detail of the encounter. Every motion, every word, and every look from the men now felt like clues in a larger puzzle. He needed answers. Stepping inside, Alex immediately moved toward his office, where he kept a stack of files from past cases and neighborhood reports. His instincts told him this wasn't just a case of rogue HOA enforcers. There was a deeper layer here, something tied to the very fabric of the community he had worked so hard to protect. The deeper he dug, the more the pieces would start to fall into place, or at least, that's what he hoped. The phone rang as he sifted through the stack of papers on his desk. Without thinking, he grabbed the receiver. "Sheriff Harris." "Alex, it's Sarah." The voice on the other end was tight with urgency. Sarah was his colleague, a fellow officer, and someone he trusted with his life. The sound of her voice sent an immediate jolt of concern through him. "Listen, I don't know how to say this, but there's something strange going on with those HOA guys." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice dropped even lower, barely a whisper. "I did a quick check on them. They're not who they say they are. They don't exist in the county records, Alex. There's no record of a HOA enforcement team. At least not under that name. And the ones you described, they got ties to some, well, let's say less than legitimate organizations." A cold shiver ran down Alex's spine. "What kind of organizations?" Sarah paused. "The kind that do the dirty work for people who prefer to stay in the shadows. I don't have all the details yet, but we're talking about private security firms with a questionable reputation. They've been linked to black market operations, and I'm starting to think this isn't just about HOA rules anymore. These guys might be part of something bigger, something illegal." Alex's mind raced as the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just a rogue group of HOA officers trying to flex their muscles. This was an orchestrated operation, a dangerous network operating beneath the radar, and they were using the HOA as a cover. "I need more information," Alex said, his voice now steady and resolute. "Keep digging, Sarah. I'll handle it from here." "Be careful," Sarah warned. "These guys don't play by the rules, and they won't hesitate to make things personal if they feel threatened." The line went dead, and Alex sat there, his pulse hammering in his ears. Everything had just escalated. The stakes were higher than he could have imagined, and now he was in deeper than ever. His eyes narrowed. Whoever these people were, they weren't going to stop with intimidation. They'd already shown how far they were willing to go. And if Alex didn't act quickly, he'd be caught in the crossfire of something much darker than a neighborhood squabble. The storm was coming. And this time, Alex wasn't going to wait for it to hit. He was going to take the fight to them. The quiet of Alex's home felt almost suffocating now, as if the very walls were closing in on him. His mind raced with what Sarah had uncovered. The HOA security team didn't exist in any legitimate records. Their ties to shady organizations, the black market dealings, all painted a clear picture that no longer seemed like an isolated case. Whoever these men were, they had planned every move carefully. They had used the HOA's name as a cover, and now they were targeting him. Alex stood up abruptly, pushing the papers aside. His hands clenched into fists, the weight of the situation sinking in deeper than he cared to admit. There was no turning back. The game had changed. They weren't just after compliance anymore. They were targeting him. And if they knew who he was, what he represented, then they might not hesitate to take more drastic measures. The phone call with Sarah still echoed in his ears, the warning clear. These people didn't care about the law. They cared about power, control, and getting what they wanted, by any means necessary. If they were willing to threaten me, they're willing to go even further, Alex thought grimly. The sudden ring of his cell phone cut through the silence, pulling Alex from his dark thoughts. His fingers hesitated over the screen, but then he answered, his voice cold and controlled. Alex Harris. Sheriff Harris, I trust you remember me. The voice on the other end was smooth, calculating, too calm. It made Alex's skin crawl. He knew instantly who it was. The leader of the HOA enforcement team. I don't forget easily, Alex said through clenched teeth, his fingers tapping an impatient rhythm on the desk. What do you want? Oh, nothing much, the leader replied with a chuckle that didn't match the seriousness of his words. I just wanted to make sure we're clear on where things stand. You're a man who values law and order, aren't you, Sheriff? But you see, sometimes, even lawmen have to realize when they're out of their depth. Alex's jaw tightened. This was a power play, a move to unsettle them. But he wasn't going to show weakness. Not now. I'm not playing your game. Alex shot back, his voice low. A warning. So why don't you stop wasting my time and tell me what this is really about? There was a pause on the line, as if the leader was savoring the moment. You see, Sheriff, it's not about the HOA anymore. It never was. We've got bigger plans, and you're in the way. I think you'll find that if you don't cooperate, things might get complicated for you and your friends. The coldness in the leader's voice sent a jolt of alarm through Alex's chest. He felt a knot form in the pit of his stomach as the implications of the words sank in. Friends. They weren't just after him. They had people watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. People he cared about. People he couldn't protect if he didn't take control of the situation. Stay away from my family. Alex's voice dropped dangerously low, a fierce edge to it. The leader chuckled again, his tone dripping with amusement. Family. We've got no interest in your family, Sheriff. But we do have an interest in your cooperation. The sooner you realize that, the better. I'll be in touch. The line went dead with a final, sinister click, leaving Alex standing there in the silence. His mind raced, trying to piece together the leader's cryptic words. Bigger plans. People watching him. The threat was no longer veiled. They were closing in, tightening their grip. Alex quickly grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the house. He didn't have time to waste. Every second felt like a lifetime. The leader's calm voice still lingered in his ears, the warning echoing over and over again. He needed answers. He needed to know who else was behind this and how far their influence spread. He couldn't trust anyone until he got to the bottom of it. And he couldn't afford to wait for them to make the next move. His car's engine roared to life as he sped down the winding roads, his mind focused and sharp. Sarah's warning echoed again in his head. They don't play by the rules. Alex had to prepare himself for anything. If these people were truly part of something larger, then they had resources, connections, things he couldn't see yet. He had to be ready for the worst. As he approached the outskirts of town, a flash of movement caught his eye. A dark figure slipping into an alleyway. Alex's instincts flared. Without thinking, he slammed on the brakes and cut the wheel hard, his tires screeching against the pavement as he turned sharply into the alley, his headlights cutting through the darkness. Whoever this person was, they were trying to hide. He grabbed his flashlight, his hand steady despite the adrenaline that surged through him. The alley was narrow, shadows dancing along the walls. But Alex could sense he wasn't alone. The air felt thick with the presence of someone, or something, waiting. He moved cautiously, his every step calculated, every sound amplified in the stillness of the night. As he approached the end of the alley, The shadowy figure stopped, turning to face him. Alex's breath hitched when he recognized the face beneath the dim glow of his flashlight. It was one of the guards from earlier. The man's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed into something far darker. He didn't speak, but his posture was unmistakable. "Get out of here." But Alex wasn't backing down. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice sharp and demanding. The guard remained silent, his lips tightening into a thin line. But the defiance in his eyes was clear. He wasn't going to talk. "They know something," Alex realized, his instincts screaming that this was just the beginning. And now he had no choice but to go deeper, into the heart of this dangerous conspiracy, where the real power lay hidden. Alex's heart was pounding in his chest, the sound thundering in his ears as he stood face to face with the guard. The alleyway felt impossibly small now, the shadows pressing in on him from all sides. The guard didn't move, didn't flinch, but the tension was suffocating. There was something in the air, an unspoken understanding that neither of them could escape what was coming. For a moment, Alex considered pulling back, but his instincts screamed at him to push forward. He couldn't afford to let this man slip away. Not now. Not when he was so close. "What do you know?" Alex asked again, his voice cutting through the stillness. His fingers tightened around the flashlight, the beam flickering slightly as the weight of the moment hung over them both. "This isn't just about the HOA. You're part of something bigger, and I want answers. Now." The guard's lips twitched, just barely. He seemed to be weighing his options, as if deciding whether it was worth fighting or running. The streetlights from above cast a ghostly glow, illuminating the man's face just enough for Alex to see the tightness in his jaw, the fear that flickered beneath his otherwise stoic expression. Suddenly, without warning, the guard lunged forward. But Alex was ready. His instincts kicked in faster than his brain could process, his body moving in a fluid arc to the side. The guard's fist connected with the empty space where Alex had just been, and before he could recover, Alex grabbed the man by the wrist and twisted, pulling him off balance and sending him crashing against the alley wall with a sickening thud. The guard let out a sharp grunt, his body slumping to the ground in a heap. Alex stood over him, his chest rising and falling with the effort, his gaze locked on the man. He wasn't done. Not by a long shot. "I'm not playing games," Alex growled, bending down to grab the guard by the collar, lifting him just enough to look him in the eye. "Tell me who you're working for. What's going on? Who else is involved?" The guard's eyes shifted nervously, and for a brief moment, Alex saw a flicker of something resembling fear. But then the man's lips curled into a grim smile, his voice low and barely a whisper. "You don't get it, do you, Sheriff?" he rasped, his breath ragged. "It's bigger than you. It's always been bigger. This is just the beginning. And you're already too far in. There's no getting out now." Before Alex could react, the guard spat in his face. The boldness of the act, the defiance, stung more than any physical hit. Alex's hand clenched into a fist, but he kept his control, wiping the spittle off his cheek and shaking his head. He wasn't going to let the man get under his skin. Not now. "You're not going to intimidate me," Alex said firmly, his voice calm and cold. "Tell me who's behind this, who's pulling the strings." The guard's eyes narrowed. "You're digging in the wrong place. They're watching you right now, Sheriff. Every move you make, every question you ask. You think they haven't noticed." His laugh was sharp, mocking, and filled with malice. "The moment you stepped into this, you were already marked." The guard stopped fighting, his body going limp in Alex's grip. "It's already too late for you. You'll see soon enough." A cold dread settled deep in Alex's gut. Who are they? The words echoed in his mind as he let the guard drop to the ground, his pulse quickening. The man wasn't just talking about the HOA. He was talking about something much, much larger. Something more dangerous. Alex's hand instinctively reached for his phone, dialing Sarah's number with urgency. It rang twice before she picked up, her voice strained. "Alex, what's happening?" "They know I'm coming for them," Alex said, his voice tight. "They've been watching me. They've been watching every step I've taken. They're not just a rogue group anymore, Sarah. This goes deeper. Much deeper." He could hear Sarah's sharp intake of breath on the other end. "What do you mean? Who are they?" "I don't know yet, but they're planning something big, something I'm not even sure I can stop. The guard, I think he knows more than he's letting on. He's scared, Sarah. And when people like him get scared, that's when you know you're getting close to the truth." There was a long pause on the line, and then Sarah spoke again, her voice laced with caution. "Alex, I need you to be careful. This is bigger than you think. You can't trust anyone right now, not even me." Alex froze. "What do you mean?" "You don't know who's been compromised." Sarah's voice lowered to a near whisper. "I've been hearing rumors, whispers in the department. There are people within law enforcement who have affiliations, and they're all connected to whatever this is. You're not just up against a rogue HOA team. You're up against a system." Alex's stomach churned. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. His own department might not be safe. If his colleagues were compromised, then anyone could be a threat. He couldn't trust anyone, except Sarah, if she was still loyal. "I'm not backing down," Alex said, his resolve hardening. "I'm going to find out who's behind this, even if it means tearing everything apart." "Just be careful," Sarah warned. "I don't know how far this goes, but I know it's dangerous. Don't let your anger cloud your judgment. You're going to need every ounce of your strength to survive this." As Alex hung up, the weight of her words settled heavily on his shoulders. He couldn't back down. He wouldn't, but he needed to be careful. They were out there, watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. And soon enough, Alex would find himself face to face with the ones truly pulling the strings. But what would he discover when he finally uncovered the full extent of their plans? The night was heavy with tension. The city's heartbeat muted beneath the weight of Alex's thoughts. His hands gripped the steering wheel of his patrol car, knuckles white in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. His mind raced, trying to process the gravity of Sarah's warning. His own department might be compromised. Could he trust anyone at all? As his tires hummed steadily over the road, every shadow seemed to whisper threats, every passing car a potential threat. He didn't have the luxury of time to second-guess himself. The guard's cryptic words echoed in his head. "They're watching you. You're already marked." Alex could feel the weight of those words pressing down on him. They weren't just threats. They were promises, and they were getting closer. He needed to find out who was truly behind the network before they could make their move. But who could he trust? Sarah was the only person left who hadn't shown signs of betrayal, but even that was a thin thread. She had warned him that the people behind this were everywhere, hidden in plain sight. He was walking into a labyrinth with no clear way out. As Alex reached the edge of town, the familiar streets felt foreign. The once comfortable surroundings of his home turf were now tainted, turned into something sinister. He couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on him, watching from the shadows. Every movement he made was being monitored, every step carefully observed. They were always one step ahead. Suddenly, a car pulled in behind him, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a blade. Alex's gut twisted. He could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the hairs on the back of his neck standing up. Someone was following him. The engine of the car revved once, twice. Then the vehicle accelerated, closing the gap between them. Instinct kicked in. Alex floored the gas pedal, sending the patrol cars speeding through the quiet streets. His heart raced in sync with the engine, his eyes darting in the rearview mirror. The car was still there, tailing him, its headlights burning bright in the night. Whoever was behind the wheel wasn't wasting any time. This wasn't just a coincidence. He was being hunted. He swerved down a narrow alley, narrowly missing a trash can as the tires screeched on the slick pavement. The car behind him followed suit, not far behind. He could hear the faint sound of screeching brakes, the car behind him not hesitating to follow his every move. Alex's pulse quickened. This was no longer a game of questions and answers. This was survival. Another sharp turn. A dead end. Alex's heart leaped into his throat as he slammed his brakes, the patrol car jerking to a halt just inches from the brick wall at the end of the alley. He had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows over the narrow space. The sound of the other car's engine stopped just behind him, and Alex's hand hovered over his holster. The silence was deafening. Then the sound of the other car's door opening broke through the quiet, followed by footsteps approaching. Alex didn't wait for the figure to reach him. He reached for his radio, his fingers trembling as he spoke into it. "This is Sheriff Harris," his voice crackled. "I need backup now. I'm at..." Before he could finish, the figure emerged from the shadows, and Alex's breath hitched in his chest. Standing before him was the leader of the HOA enforcement team. Alex's mouth went dry as the man's cold eyes locked onto him. The leader wore the same smug expression as before, as if he were untouchable. "Sheriff," he said, his voice smooth, every word carefully measured. "I must say, I'm impressed. You're harder to shake than I thought." Alex's fingers tightened around the radio. "You've been following me," he said, the words coming out more like a statement than a question. "What do you want from me?" The leader took a step forward, his gaze never leaving Alex's. "I think you already know, Sheriff. You're not the only one who's been digging, but unlike you, I don't make the mistake of asking questions I don't want the answers to." A chill ran down Alex's spine. "What do you mean?" The leader smirked, eyes glinting with dark amusement. "You see, Sheriff, I'm not interested in the little games you're trying to play. You're a distraction, a small obstacle in our bigger plan. I was hoping we wouldn't have to deal with you, but here we are." Alex's heart hammered in his chest, the implications of the man's words sinking in. This wasn't just about protecting the neighborhood. This was something far larger. They had planned for him, tracked him, anticipated every move he made. And now, it seemed, they were ready to finish it. "You think you're in control," Alex said, his voice low but steady. "But you're wrong. I'm not going anywhere." The leader's smile faltered for just a moment, and Alex saw a flicker of something. Uncertainty. Was it fear, or was it something else? Before he could process it, the leader's hand moved quickly to his side, pulling out a gun. The barrel of the gun gleamed coldly in the dim light. "You've been warned, Sheriff," the leader said. "Now, we finish this." Everything around Alex seemed to slow as the gun came into focus, the world narrowing to just him and the weapon. But before the leader could pull the trigger, Alex's training kicked in. He moved like lightning, dropping low and rolling to the side, his hand already reaching for his own weapon. The crack of gunfire echoed through the alley, but Alex was already on his feet, his aim steady. He fired, the shot ringing out in the still night air. The leader staggered back, his gun falling from his hand, the blood already soaking through his shirt. The world around them seemed to freeze in place as the man crumpled to the ground. Alex stood there, breathing heavily, his body tense. The danger wasn't over. But for now, he had taken his first step in stopping whatever darkness the leader had been part of. But who else was out there? What else was waiting? The alley was deathly still, save for the harsh rasp of Alex's breath, the adrenaline still pumping through his veins. The leader of the HOA enforcement team lay crumpled on the cold asphalt, his blood seeping out in dark pools. Alex stood over him, gun still aimed, his body tense, ready for any movement. But the man was motionless, his life already slipping away. Alex's mind raced as he slowly lowered the weapon. This wasn't over. Far from it. The leader might be down, but the real battle was just beginning. Who else was involved in this? What did this organization want, and how far did their influence reach? Suddenly, the sound of sirens in the distance pierced the air, and Alex's heart skipped a beat. Backup was on the way. But in the back of his mind, he knew the danger wasn't just about him anymore. The entire town, the entire system, was at risk. They had all underestimated just how deeply these people had embedded themselves into the fabric of society. Alex quickly scanned the area, his eyes locking onto the fallen leader's blood-stained shirt. A faint, twisted smile curled on the man's lips, even in death. The smile wasn't one of victory. It was one of knowing something Alex didn't. "What is it you're not telling me?" Before Alex could approach to examine the body further, the unmistakable sound of boots against gravel echoed from behind him. He spun around instinctively, his gun still ready, his muscles primed for action. A figure stepped into the dim light, tall, imposing, wearing a heavy coat and a face full of cold resolve. It was another one of the enforcers, but this one wasn't like the rest. His eyes were sharp, calculating, the look of someone who'd been in the shadows for far too long. Someone who knew how to play the game. Someone who knew Alex's every move. "You're too late," Alex said, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. His fingers wrapped tighter around the grip of his gun, but his mind was working quickly. This man wasn't here to help, and whatever he wanted, Alex couldn't afford to give him the upper hand. The man didn't flinch at the gun. "I'm not here to stop you," he said, his voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "But I am here to make sure you understand what you're up against." Alex narrowed his eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You've seen the surface," the man continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, "but you haven't seen the whole picture. This isn't just some rogue operation. This goes higher, much higher. People like you, men of law, men of principle, are so predictable. You fight back, and they think they can break you. But you don't understand the game. You're a pawn in it, Sheriff." Alex's blood ran cold. He'd known something was off, but hearing it laid out like this made the entire situation seem even more terrifying. This wasn't just about the HOA's enforcement team. It was about a system, a network of power that extended far beyond what Alex had imagined. "You think you can stand up to it?" the man asked, almost mockingly. "You think you're the hero? You're just one person. You've been looking at the wrong enemy." Alex stepped forward, his eyes burning with intensity. "Then who's the enemy? Who's pulling the strings?" The man gave a slow, deliberate smile, his eyes gleaming with hidden knowledge. "You'll find out soon enough. But by then, it'll be too late." Without another word, the man turned and vanished back into the darkness from which he had emerged, his footsteps fading into the distance like an echo of doom. Alex stood there, alone with the body of the leader, his mind reeling from the cryptic words. His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Sarah. Without hesitation, Alex answered. "Alex?" Her voice was frantic, sharp. "You're not going to believe this." "I know," Alex said, his voice tight with realization. "They're bigger than I thought. They're everywhere, Sarah. And they've been watching me the whole time." "Not just you," Sarah replied, her voice laced with fear. "They've been watching everyone. I found something. Files, documents. They're not just tied to the HOA. They've infiltrated local businesses, the police department, even political offices. It's a web, Alex, and it's spread everywhere." Alex's stomach tightened. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just an isolated incident. This was a carefully constructed network of power operating in the shadows, and it was more dangerous than anything Alex had ever faced. "I have to bring this to the authorities," Sarah continued. "But Alex, I'm scared. I don't know who to trust anymore." "I'll figure it out," Alex said, his voice hardening. "We'll bring this down together. But we need to be smart. We can't trust anyone who's already been compromised." There was a long pause on the line. "I'm scared, Alex. What if we're too late?" "We're not too late," Alex said, his voice unwavering. "We're just getting started. The weight of the situation pressed down on him like a vice, but there was no turning back now. He couldn't walk away, not when so much was at stake. The web of corruption that had woven itself so deeply into the fabric of the community was unraveling, and Alex would follow it to the end, no matter where it took him. As he turned and walked away from the alley, his mind was already working, already planning the next move. They'd underestimated him. They thought they could break him. But Alex Harris wasn't just a sheriff. He was the key to bringing down the dark forces at work, and he would stop at nothing to expose the truth. The game was on, and Alex wasn't backing down.